But to give our listeners a little 1-2 on who you are, what you do at Own America.
Sure. I'm a real estate junkie, have been my whole life. OwnAmerica is a website dedicated to real estate investment. The twist that we put on it, always have, is that it's really more of an accumulation play. We're not flippers. I wouldn't know how to do that if I tried, and I wouldn't really want to. I don't care so much about that. You're good at that, which makes us kind of ham and eggs here. We can cover both sides, but I'm about empire. I've always loved single-family homes as the kind of core instrument through which you buy pieces of the country. That's why we named the company Own America, right? Because I think that's what the experience is. It's not Investorama, right? That's underplaying it.
That's right.
In fact, somebody asked me recently how we came up with the name, and it was kind of a fun story. I'll give it to you real quick. Mm-hmm. I was always fascinated by Yahoo, the brand that for a lot of young people today, it's kind of became a goof. It's become a goof. It got so beat by Google, but back in the 90s, man, it was a beast. And it was the first big search engine. And the competitors that it was beating were things like InfoSeek. And the big browsers of the day were like Netscape and Internet Explorer, which is, of course, still around. Everybody's brands were technologically oriented. InfoSeek, right? What are you doing? You're seeking info. And Yahoo came along, and what struck me about their brand was that, surfing the web was the term, right? And they were focused on surfing instead of the web, right? So they said Yahoo. Yahoo is the sound that the gasp that you make when something really fun is happening, right?
That's right.
And so they blew away everybody else. And I know it was because of their brains and their tech and everything else, but I always thought the branding was better than anything I've seen before and since. And so when it came time to name this company, when we founded it a little more than 9 years ago, we had a branding company talking about realometry and things like that. And I was like, no, that's not it. What's the experience, right? What's the equivalent of Yahoo for surfing the web? And for me, it was Owning America. And so that URL amazingly was available for $12. And so that's it. So that's what I'm all about. And we work with the biggest professional and institutional investors in the world on our platform who buy large volumes of single-family rentals. But this show and this relationship with Think Realty, in a lot of ways, is me getting back to where I kind of always wanted to be, which is with small investors, because of how much this means to them. If they accumulate one rental house, right? Forget about 5, forget about 20. What that does, depending on who they are, for anybody who accumulates a couple of houses and pays them off, it changes everything for them when they retire. It changes everything for their kids. And so my mission here is to get the person who's thinking about buying one to do it responsibly, and then to go set a goal for how long it's going to take for them to get 5, and then on from there, right? Make your way to 50 if you can, because then literally your great grandkids have a portrait of you over the mantle because you're the one who did it for everybody,
And you're the one that secured that legacy. When you first started investing in real estate and becoming part of the single-family rental space, what was your why? I don't think I've ever asked you that. What was your why?
Because there was no brand in this country to serve investors. I believed that the housing crisis was being overblown, and I can prove that it was. It's happening again. I knew there was going to be an investment boom. I knew enough people back then were going to keep their heads and realize that this is housing. So when something this valuable gets discounted because of isolated circumstances like happened 10, 12 years ago, there was going to be an investment boom. And there was no real estate company, there was no real estate website that existed in the country that actually was only about that. People buying property, single-family homes as rentals or for rentals. And so the why was really that those people deserve to have somebody placing them at the center of the universe. Like I'm frustrated to this day that I can't go to any of the big national real estate companies, you name it, Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, you name it. Go to Zillow and Trulia. Try to find me the big menu item for investors. You're not going to find it. They're all about home buyers who are going to live there. And so the entire industry that works so hard to give great service and build great technology and have great branch offices on every main street in America, none of them give a darn about the people that I care about, your listeners, the people that you care about. So the why was, let's build a brand and a company and all the services for those people because they deserve it. And by the way, since nobody's ever shown them any love, they're really going to respond well to us showing them some love.
That's fair. Zillow talked a little bit about this recession or this idea of a recession hitting by early 2020. I'm sure you know a little bit about this article, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. Zillow saying recession 2020. When will the next U.S. recession begin? They took a poll, and essentially it says 73% of the folks think that by the end of the decade, we're going to hit a recession. What do you think about that? Do you agree, disagree?
Well, I don't. You go deeply into their survey, and it was less than half of the people actually thought there was going to be a recession in 2020. And so for whatever reason, and I'm not going to speculate on what that might be, there are a lot of people who want to believe that what goes up must come down, that want to believe that now that 10 years has gone by since the housing crisis, we have another housing crisis to come, and they misread the stats. And some of them, and I'm not putting Zillow in this category at all, but there are some people, like, for example, the reason why we have this segment called Smart People Saying Dumb Things About Real Estate is that it happens all the time. And so the story that came out this week was the Case-Shiller Index, which is an index that people jump on that gives you an indication of where the market's going. The Case-Shiller Index got famous by calling the housing crisis and then riding the housing crisis down like a rented mule, right? They just pounded on it. They developed their index to highlight the volatility on the negative side. So, for example, today, yesterday headline, Case-Shiller confirms cooling housing market. And when you go into the article, it talks all about how today's behavior, because of mortgage rates going down and because of all these other factors, are showing a cooling of the housing market. And I want to instead of going too much into the weeds, because I could go all day on this subject, there's one thing about this that it kind of illustrates for people what BS these stories are based on. I could find you 4 things in the story and in the analysis that I consider to be junk analysis. But one of them that I love is it talks about the mortgage rates going up in September and how the Case-Shiller Index for September reflects that the mortgage rates went up. But here's the problem. The Case-Shiller Index for September reflects home sales that closed in August or July, because that's how long it takes for those deeds to get recorded. That's how long it takes for the data to make its way to Case-Shiller for their index. So it's closings from July, August, which reflects buyer activity from May and June. Has nothing to do with mortgage rates in September.